Over a century has passed since the guns fell silent on the Western Front, marking the end of the Great War, the war to end all wars. But did it? Today we journey back in time not just to recount the battles of Verdun or the Somme, but to understand why this conflict, which ended over 100 years ago, still casts such a long, profound shadow over our modern world. How do we remember a war that has now passed from living memory? What are its lessons, and have we truly learned them? From 1914 to 1918, the world was engulfed in a cataclysm of unprecedented scale. It mobilized over 70 million military personnel, one of the largest mobilizations in history. It redrew the map of Europe, toppling empires and birthing new nations. The Austro-Hungarian, German, Ottoman, and Russian empires, which had dominated the world stage for centuries, crumbled into dust. In their place, countries like Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia emerged, setting the stage for future geopolitical tensions. But the true cost was human. Over 15 million people perished, soldiers and civilians alike. Imagine an entire generation of young men from Britain, France, Germany, Russia, America, Australia, and so many other nations wiped out. They were poets, farmers, factory workers, and artists. They had dreams, families, and futures that were stolen by the mud and chaos of the trenches. Each number represents a personal story of loss, a ripple effect of grief that touched families and communities for decades. Let's step into the trenches for a moment. Life here was a grim lottery of survival. Constant shelling, the stench of decay, mud that could swallow a man whole, and the ever-present threat of a gas attack. Soldiers endured unimaginable conditions. They battled not just the enemy but also trenchfoot, rats, and the psychological trauma we now call PTSD. Yet, amidst this horror, incredible stories of camaraderie, courage, and humanity emerged. Soldiers on opposing sides would call temporary truces, famously during Christmas of 1914, to share gifts and sing carols, a brief flicker of light in an overwhelming darkness. These personal stories are crucial to our remembrance. Take the letters written home. They weren't just reports from the front, they were lifelines, filled with longing for normalcy, love for family, and desperate hope for a swift end to the conflict. Museums and archives around the world preserve these precious documents. Reading a letter from a young soldier describing the simple joy of receiving a parcel from home, or his fears before going over the top, connects us to the past on a deeply personal level. It transforms abstract history into a tangible, human experience. The war also accelerated technological and social change at a dizzying pace. It was the first major conflict to feature airplanes, tanks, and chemical weapons, forever changing the face of warfare. On the home front, the absence of men led to a massive influx of women into the workforce, taking on roles in factories and farms that had previously been considered men's work. This societal shift was a crucial catalyst for the women's suffrage movement in many countries, proving that women were indispensable to the nation's efforts. The world after 1918 was fundamentally different from the world that entered the war in 1914. So, how do we remember today, with no veterans left to tell their tales? We remember through solemn ceremonies held at monuments like the Menin Gate in Ypres, where the last post is played every single evening in an unbroken tradition. We remember through the fields of poppies, a symbol inspired by John McCrae's poem In Flanders Fields, representing the bloodshed and the resilience of nature. We remember by visiting the vast silent cemeteries that stretch across France and Belgium, where rows upon rows of white headstones stand in silent testimony to the cost of war. Each grave marks a life, a story, a family forever changed. But remembrance is more than just looking back. It's about understanding the why. Why did this happen? Historians point to a complex web of militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism, the so-called main causes. A single assassination in Sarajevo lit a fuse that ignited a continent-wide powder keg. This teaches us a vital lesson about how quickly diplomacy can fail and how easily nations can stumble into catastrophic conflict. It's a warning about the dangers of unchecked nationalism and the domino effect of military alliances. The end of World War I was supposed to bring lasting peace. The Treaty of Versailles was signed, the League of Nations was formed, yet the harsh terms imposed on Germany and the unresolved tensions ultimately sowed the seeds for an even more devastating conflict just 2 decades later. This is perhaps the most sobering legacy of the Great War, its failure to truly end all wars. It serves as a stark reminder that peace is not merely the absence of fighting. It is a fragile state that requires constant vigilance, empathy, and a commitment to international cooperation. Today, as we navigate our own complex world, with its own set of global challenges and rising tensions, the echoes of 1914 are more relevant than ever. The lessons of the First World War are not dusty relics of the past, they are urgent messages for the present. They call on us to value diplomacy, to reject extremism, to understand the human cost of conflict, and to work tirelessly to build bridges instead of digging trenches. By remembering the sacrifices of that lost generation, we honor their memory in the most meaningful way possible. By striving for the peaceful world they were denied, we must be the custodians of their stories, ensuring that the Great War is never forgotten, so that its catastrophic mistakes are never repeated. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more explorations of history and its impact on our world. We remember them.